Their stories started in a shelter. Start your story. Adopt a dog or cat today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a shelter or adoptable pets near you. Training that pet to play the keyboard? Well, that's entirely up to you. Visit theshelterpetproject.org and hear more about Hamilton the Pug, Toast, and Keyboard Cat's amazing adoption stories. Start a story, adopt a shelter, or rescue pet today. Your perfect pet is just a click away at theshelterpetproject.org. A public service announcement brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social pages we're up on already with a bunch of people tuning in. That's one of the better ways you can chime in throughout the program. Well, usually anyway, is over on the socials, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either Andrew J. Polk or Talk El Paso, the name of most of those outlets. But we have made it through this. Well, it wasn't quite as tumultuous a week as we thought it was. Trans Mountain Road has reopened. Schools are back more or less normal at this point. I still feel bad for those that got just completely just screwed out of a snow day is what it comes down to it. I would have been mad as a kid back then, so I kind of feel bad for it. But we still have some lingering impacts here going on from the winter weather, but there's a whole lot more to get into as we have Edgar Ortiz joining us and chiming in over on the social pages. A lot of interesting political moves. You may have even heard it if you were listening closely towards the end of that last hour. Some national politics affecting statewide politics and stuff that we're going to be able to vote on here. Ed Clore announcing the Talk El Paso free-for-all. Gentlemen, to your corners here. Just stay away from any of those copyrighted phrases such as let's get ready to bumble. I don't want to get sued for it. But we will get into all of the subjects here. So if you're wanting to call in during the show, we do have those lines open throughout the program. And the number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. I hope you all have stayed safe and warm out there. I got the heat cranked up in our studio here right now, so if it looks like I'm sweating, that's more or less on purpose, because we did have a pipe burst here at the office. I'm mildly ashamed to say, but it wasn't my fault. It was one of those outdoor landscaping pipes going to whatever part of our watering system it does, and came into the office today just to find it gushing, so I had to be the one to wade in over there and get it shut off so that it didn't keep doing that and keep freezing. But we got quite the lake in our parking lot, so I hope you have fared better and followed the tips. Kind of want to give a swift kick in the butt to whoever rigged that up, because it looks like there was no insulation on an otherwise just plain PVC pipe. So don't be like us and me here in the studio. Make sure you're good to go. Get a little bit more freeze left to go, and then should be climbing out of it as we get into Saturday. And that's why, again, as another note on our programming, are going to be having that new El Paso History Radio show airing tomorrow on UTEP history, the Bhutanese architecture, the Centennial Museum, all of those subjects. But again, quite the politically tumultuous week, even without there necessarily being a whole rigmarole surrounding the grid as similar was happened last year. If it hadn't worked out that way, almost regardless of the storm, probably would have seen maybe not a total similarly precipitous drop for the electoral chances of current Texas Governor Greg Abbott, but wouldn't have been good for him. Whether or not he can totally tout this remains to be seen. I mean, a lot of other parts of the state still kind of getting out of this. Some power outages still going on as far as I'm aware, but definitely a marked improvement over, well, same time last year. And that does raise the question for me still, how the whole keeping the lights on tour that the presumed and very likely to be main Democratic rival on the November ballot against Governor Greg Abbott is going to be, of course, local Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke. Kind of pinning this current situation and the current movement heading into the primary on this whole, again, keeping the lights on tour, pegged to the idea of, well, the grid didn't work last time. It has been a lot of just concerns and issues I've had with that whole campaign and previous ones too about the timing of it, because the way it finally announced for that presidential run that happened just kept seeming to be, come on, just, we all know you're gonna do it, just admit it and we can move on with our lives kind of situation. And this kind of feels the same way with this tour here. Not quite the same, why don't you just admit it that you're going to be doing this? This has been one of the few-ish campaign points that has been made, elaborated on decently enough by the O'Rourke campaign since the campaign announcement, but that just seems to come at a bad time, because if this had been disastrous, I'm sure there would have been some that would have said, well, you're just piling on, we got issues in the state going on. But now I got to imagine that in the eyes or the minds of the average voter are going to be saying, well, so what? They more or less fixed it. We didn't have the same issues as last time that we had a winter storm. So what? Whoop-de-doo. I don't think anyone necessarily that doesn't already agree with that campaign is going to be swayed by this. I think what it comes down to, but you got to look at things like the campaign finance numbers that did also end up coming out this week, showing that the governor is outraising the O'Rourke campaign by within points of $1 million. I mean, yeah, $1 million here, $1 million there, start talking real money, right? But also the war chest that is still definitely there. I mean, we've got a bunch of stuff running on our air. I've been seeing in other print ads around on other forms of media permeating town. So a focus happening, to my recollection, more than usual for statewide campaigns. They usually kind of just don't talk about El Paso. We don't talk about the borderland region when it comes to statewide campaigns, unless they're hoping to get something out of it or hoping to do, frankly, an insurgent run. Doesn't seem to be the case now. I've also been seeing and hearing, and even on our air, go by ads for Dan Patrick, for, of course, lieutenant governor, and a decently dominant position there, at least within his own primary. But then that interesting one that I had to go back and listen to myself, and this is not boost or endorsement, anything to that point, but Louis Gohmert, who was, of course, challenging Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, touting that, well, we almost kind of missed it. There was that rally from former President Donald Trump that happened in Texas this past week that has a couple of implications. A pretty, I mean, the audio, if you heard it, I think it just aired at the end of this last hour here, pretty round and sounding endorsement for Gohmert over Paxton. Not necessarily in juxtaposition with that quote there, but saying that, yes, Gohmert's a good guy and you should vote for him kind of sentiment, which then by omission makes it seem like, well, Paxton, what kind of situation is he in when it comes to that endorsement? Whatever you may think about the former president, it's hard to deny that that endorsement with certain sectors of the electorate can be seen as pretty influential. But the other one that's been reported on a little bit, and I'm not sure how well or how much this is going to impact into the primary anyway. The polling has been kind of all over the place. Just the one we focused on is the kind of eventual matchup main point there. But there were some, depending on reports, I couldn't really get the audio for myself here, but between some various or scattered boos during that rally held again by the former president that was introduced by the current governor, Greg Abbott, getting some unhappy audio feedback from certain parts of the audience. Now, again, the accounts differ on exactly how much it was. It wasn't exactly the whole arena of people there up in arms, apparently, but enough to be audible, which then does raise a question about what is this then turnout going to result in for the governor. Again, he is pretty dominant in the fundraising and has been in politics for quite a long time in Texas, so I've said it once and I'll say it again before we're done. They're underestimating Greg Abbott would be a mistake because, again, politics doesn't care about your feelings, and some scattered boos does not necessarily a primary defeat indicate. Still raises the question on, of those and the insurgent movements happening within the Republican Party itself against the sitting governor, is there enough legs behind it to actually get anywhere? The real, I guess, question in my mind is not if Greg Abbott will end up being in the top two, but whether or not he will basically avoid a runoff. Because if he can't secure that 50% or more, he will then be thrown into a campaign against, in the runoff campaign, against the other top one. And again, at this point, it's looking pretty likely to me that he will be able to avoid that. But again, who knows? Polling has been not the most, I mean, they have a margin of error for a reason, but even with some of the recent elections, more than a couple of questions being raised. So, I don't know. Tell me what you think. We are taking those calls throughout this hour today, or 2 hours, as we are 4 to 6 p.m. now. Force a habit, but we know those phone lines open now, due for that first break already. But again, if you're wanting to comment, as we already have Ed Clore and Edgar Ortiz doing over on the social media, or adding your 2 cents, you are more than welcome to. Open invitation to place that call about this or other subjects, taking on all subjects today. 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Had an injury accident toward the downtown area, Gateway Boulevard southbound, south of the 10 at the 110. Expect delays, big backup there. Gateway Boulevard southbound at Pershing Drive. A stalled vehicle is blocking the right lane. Executive Center Boulevard at Pinnacle Street. It's slow and go there because of that crash. And as a reminder, the Trans Mountain still closed today, both east and westbound. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by BlindStare. Do you need new blinds or shades? BlindStare.com offers custom-made blinds, shades, and shutters shipped directly to you at prices less than big box retailers. BlindStare blinds are easy to install and guaranteed to fit. Don't overpay for new blinds. Shop BlindStare today and save big. BlindStare.com.
Have you wanted to speak a new language but thought it'd be too difficult or take too much time? Then try Babbel. In just 15 minutes a day, Babbel teaches you conversations that you will actually use. With 14 languages and lesson topics like travel, business, relationships, and more, you'll learn what matters most to you. Babbel. Language for life. Learn a new language with ease. Go to Babbel.com to try for free. That's BABBEL.com.
MassMutual knows retirement can be an uncomfortable conversation.
Who's the big boy?
You are.
Who's gonna take care of us when we retire?
It's gonna be you.
You're gonna make sure we don't end up in a retirement home.
Or if we do, it's a really nice one.
With tango lessons.
And bocce ball.
And a community pool. Oh.
Talk to us about retirement today. Feel comfortable about tomorrow. MassMutual. Live Mutual.
iHeartRadio Earth knows small changes make a big difference for the environment. Did you know that keeping your tires even a single PSI lower than recommended means worse mileage and more trips to the pump? So do the environment and your wallet a favor and always check the tire pressure. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips on smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
At Social Security, we are always thinking of ways to save you time and make things easier. That's why we created My Social Security. A My Social Security account allows you to access your earnings history and benefits information, request a replacement Social Security card, get a proof of income letter, estimate and apply for benefits, and more. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security. Securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense. Children who grow up in poverty are part of the destructive cycle. At Child Fund International, we find this unacceptable. In 25 countries, we are vigorously fighting poverty and improving the lives of children and their families. Learn more at childfund.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A bunch of ways to participate in the show. Of course, we do have that phone line open now throughout the show as we are doing that whole Friday thing. So that number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We are taking on any subject today, expanding from our usual El Paso, borderland, Texas impacting here kind of issues focus that we do. Still plenty to talk about, though, because I may have slightly misspoke when talking about the endorsements and discussion that happened even within just that rally involving the Texas Attorney General. We'll get into that here a little bit more, plus a lot of other situations going on, and we will be getting into more of our local elections coverage here. So also have a Leroy Chuck joining us over on the Facebook page. Those are some of the better ways. The conversation often takes on its own whole tenor over in those locations, whether it be the Facebook page, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch at Andrew J. Polk. I think it's an ad over there. In any case, a lot of ways to find us and get in there. And as Ed did point out yesterday, slightly better quality, and we do have the full video if you're into that kind of thing there. If you're in the car, please stay on the radio if you can, because don't want you getting any other trouble here. Again, local situation decently improving, the slight warm-up we got, but just as a stark reminder for myself and Leroy Chuck, I'll take that as a rousing endorsement. This is where truth is spoken. We like to debate and discuss what exactly is going on and further the implications about it, and that's absolutely what we do. So I came into a burst pipe in our outside issues there, so I hope you're having a better situation out in other reaches of the borderland, even if we did have at least one fire that you maybe have heard about that was seemed to be triggered by a heating system gone awry out in the borderland. So getting both sides of it in the area today. So just stay safe, stay warm, keep things correct. And I believe there's a quick correction made to the traffic report we just had. Trans Mountain now open again here after the, blockages and freezes. That if anything's going to get shut down due to the weather in our area, it is going to be Trans Mountain. So it appears that is back open according to our news partners over at KFOX 14. So let's talk a little bit more about the implications out of that rally that was held by former President Donald Trump just earlier this week, in which there was a little bit of, maybe conflicting back and forth about, actually late last week. My apologies for saying the wrong date there. So there was a rousing endorsement for current Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, but then at the same point there is, again, it pays to pay attention even during the commercials during this season, because amongst other things, there was then the strong friendship espoused for, again, Louis Gohmert right after that. So maybe a little bit of mixed messaging when it comes to this current election and what is coming up, because they were almost not quite juxtaposed next to each other in this election. Now, if you will recall, there is pretty close fundraising going on in this race. They all have, as of last check anyway, about $1 million raised between them. So it's a pretty strong one because, of course, we have current Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, who has had some legal issues, as have been pointed out. But again, the rousing endorsement of the former president, I'm sure, will count for more than a little something going into this. But Louis Gohmert, who has decided to no longer run as a representative for for Congress, National Congress, out of this, throwing his hat in there, but already some other strong or decently well-known candidates involving that, including former guest on the show here, George P. Bush, previously Texas Land Commissioner, but then instead moving into this kind of a role, searching for that. He came through town here towards the end of last year, doing his own mini border tour. But of course, that has been its own focus by the current Texas Attorney General. So whether or not that will hold remains to be seen. But then also we have former Texas Supreme Court member Eva Guzman. Now, all of them, again, decently well known in their own spheres, but I honestly don't remember this much attention being paid to an attorney general candidate or the attorney general in general, say that 5 times fast. Ever since I've started paying attention to politics, it just doesn't seem like there's usually this much time, energy, and thought put into for the general electorate. Now, there are, of course, some candidates on the other side of the ballot that are also putting up their own challenges, but most of the political handicapping that is coming up for this still points to that, probably it is going to be a likely Republican leaning for that. The real question, and I think the primary is going to be the primary point of contention going into this race, is who will actually be the Republican nominee coming out of it. I mean, anyone that is currently in the Texas state government probably has a decent amount of support behind them, even if there are some other conversations going on. But yeah, the Attorney General, is probably the one that has the most differences going on here. I mean, some of the fundraising does show that Ken Paxton having a pretty decent showing of the last one, that 30 days out report that details basically what has happened since the start of the year to roughly just before the last week of January. Ken Paxton did raise about $300,000, though Eva Guzman raised about $650,000 and change, with Louis Gohmert raising $21,000 and George P. Bush rounding it out at $83,000. So decent amounts of money and cash on hand, but the biggest war chest definitely still in the hands of again, sitting Attorney General Ken Paxton, with about just shy of $7.5 million left on hand. The next closest there would be again the Land Commissioner George P. Bush with 2.6, then Eva Guzman with 1.3 million and change. We got a ways to go here. Again, we got early voting coming up before we know it. That is going to be Valentine's Day present to us all, going on early voting. So if you are if you are going to be planning your party bus to do that, get that plan in now. I do believe the El Paso County Elections Department will be having during early voting, you can go to vote at any of the precinct locations, and then there should be the Election Day voting centers also available. That a slightly more recent advent and policy out there, one I appreciate personally, because making it more accessible to voting, still very in favor of the security with it, obviously, but we clearly have beyond anything that would make it easier for people to vote while still keeping it secure. I'm going to find myself very in favor of, because clearly we have an issue with people going out to vote 3.5% and 4.5% respectively. So we got that on our doorstep. I think the one race that I'm going to be the most possibly surprised about will be that Texas Attorney General race. I will be floored if, frankly, coming out of the governor's race, we don't see Governor Greg Abbott re-securing the nomination to then go on to the general election. And frankly, even with some also rans going alongside the O'Rourke campaign, just given the amount of interest and enthusiasm happening on that side of the ballot, plus the money being raised, that's not something that you can just totally ignore, because everyone else, according to that last fundraising report, essentially drawing dead. Just there's no one that even has more than a 10 grand left on hand, even combined between them, of those that have been reporting. It's not going to work out well for them. I don't see it happening in any reasonable way outside of essentially there being some kind of horrific accident involved in any of these candidates we've just mentioned. As long as they're still hale and healthy coming out of this primary, I fully expect them to have secured the nomination and then go on to the general. But that does leave more than a couple of seats at question within our local area. There is going to be a forum going on next week done by Raise Your Hand Texas, primarily focused on education. And so they have their For the Future Candidates Forum on public education, going to be focusing on that Texas House District 75 and 79. District 75 currently held by incumbent Mary Gonzalez, being challenged by Rene Rodriguez. And then again, that interesting one in House District 79, if only because it's not too often that you see two incumbents challenging each other. Well, does Representative Claudia Ordaz Pata still count as incumbent, given that she's no longer running in her district? Probably technically not, but in any case, two people who have otherwise previously been sitting up until this election within that position, no longer, and one of them no longer able to do so because of that whole redistricting kerfuffle we've discussed about just a little bit. So Art Fierro and Claudia Ordaz Pata is going to be talking about this. All of them supposed to be present there or invited to this candidate forum. I'll probably be talking a little bit about that. That's happening at the El Mirador at 10 Henry Choate Court from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. on February 9th. I believe that's next Wednesday. So I will probably be rushing out of here that day to go and see that and see what those candidates are talking about. But we, of course, have a lot more candidates on the ballot. We're going to be talking about some of our upcoming interviews with those, but we got to take that break right now, so stay tuned. We will get into more of that after this break here. Also, it's Friday. In case y'all forgot, we're taking those calls. 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Talk a lot about the local stuff, but we'll take any subject here today. Just keep it clean if you're calling in on air. Otherwise, back after this break with more Talk El Paso. Don't go anywhere.
Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Stephanie Safer with your KFOX 14 News update. A federal jury in Texas has convicted 2 members of the Barrio Azteca gang on all counts related to the murders of a U.S. consulate employee, her husband, and the husband of another consulate employee. Jose Guadalupe Diaz and Martin Perez Marrufo were found guilty at the conclusion of a 13-day jury trial. The victims were targeted by the hit teams after departing from a child's birthday party in Juarez because they were mistaken for rival gang members. Sentencing is scheduled for May 9th. A heater unit sparked a fire at a condo early Friday morning in East El Paso. The small fire was reported at Casa del Sol on Loma Land Drive. Crews contained the fire and no injuries were reported. A fire official said it was determined the fire was caused by the heating unit. For all your local news and weather, make sure to visit kfoxtv.com.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
The Gateway 54 southbound, south of the I-10 at the 110, emergency vehicles on the scene, and you can expect delays there. Another accident showing up Executive Center Boulevard at Pinnacle. You could take Sunbowl Drive as an alternate. Another accident with police on the scene at South Mesa Hills, north of Sunland Park at Bluff Ridge Drive. And Gateway Boulevard southbound at Pershing, that stalled vehicle is off to the right. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. We definitely started off our Friday morning with some very cold temperatures as we dipped well into the teens overnight. Well, we're going to do that yet again tonight. That's why our weather warning is still in effect until noon on Saturday. I think thereafter we'll start to make our way back gradually, but it's not going to be a quick recovery for us. We're still going to have those cool days and those cold nights.
This report is sponsored by the new Our American Stories podcast.
Check out the new Our American Stories podcast, the show where the American people are the star, telling inspiring stories of history, sports, business, faith, and love, and your stories too. Subscribe on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Louis Gohmert, what a wonderful guy. This is a man who's been a friend of mine from day one.
I'm Louis Gohmert. As a congressman, I worked with President Trump to build the wall.
Thank you, Louis. He's the only one that might be even tougher than us on the board.
As a judge, I applied the law equally, no political favors.
Louis Gohmert, the Texas conservative with Texas integrity.
Ken Paxton's attacks on me are now revealing a real desperation. It doesn't bother me. As a judge, I've stared down even the most hardened of criminals. The fact is, Ken Paxton has been indicted for fraud and is being investigated for bribery. And the Democrats are licking their chops. But Texans shouldn't be punished for his actions. I'm Louis Gohmert, and as your next Attorney General, I'll restore the rule of law, and we will secure the border once and for all. Trust me, I'll be the woke mob's worst nightmare.
Louis Gohmert, Fort Texas. Political ad paid for by Louis Gohmert Campaign.
I love when my friends stop by, but to help keep my friends and my family safe, I always spray Lysol in my home before guests arrive and again after they leave. Nothing kills more viruses on more surfaces than Lysol disinfectant spray. Lysol, what it takes to protect. Use as directed.
Get a better breakfast at Wendy's. Buy any breakfast sandwich and get any size drink in a Wendy's cup free. Hot coffee, Diet Coke, or vanilla Frosted-Chino? Yes, free. Get your free drink when you buy a Wendy's breakfast sandwich today. Limited time only at participating U.S. Wendy's during breakfast hours. This report is sponsored by Wendy's Breakfast, now with a free drink with any breakfast sandwich purchase.
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod, noun. The result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for joining us however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways that you can tune in, chime in, and we are doing that whole Friday thing. If you want to call in, we have the phone lines open now. The number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We have our usual, local impact focus as we do, but we'll take on any subject here today. The pressure relief valve for the week. So if you got something on your mind, again, that number, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Talking a little bit about elections here and all that comes with it. But in addition to that, we, of course, have some local candidates. It's really easy to talk about the specific national stuff here, but talked about some of the competitive races going on the Democrat side of the ballot, and the ones that are down, frankly, it's the reason that ever since we started this show, I've had a focus on what is going on with the state representatives, because I just don't think that, at least within El Paso, enough discussion is done about it. I've had people previously discussing about, well, I want to run for a political office. What should I do for? And the recommendation was often ending up being run for the state house because no one pays attention, which is just sad in its own very real way, because it's pretty significant, the impact that can be had within the state level. I don't know if it's just a not paying attention or also thinking, well, we're the otherwise blue corner, at least when it comes to elected official blue corner of an otherwise red state, which again, I don't think is necessarily so set in stone as it may seem to be, or at least as the conventional wisdom is. But so we got that forum coming up next week on our program. I'm going to be talking about some of the interesting competitive races. Of course, County Commissioner's Court is one of the ones that has been a little bit more in the focus locally over this last year. Not terrifically lately. It's well, not even nearly as much, I think, as really El Paso City Council has been with some of its movements and decisions and such, including things like, that little bit about police recruiting. Yeah, we talked a bit about that. But there is one race that is looking not just competitive within the primary, and that is for County Commissioner Precinct number 4. Precincts, how the County Commissioner districts are divvied up. And so that one is currently held by Carl Robinson, former El Paso City Council member Carl Robinson. And now with that, generally Precinct 4 kind of straddles the mountain up in the northeast and now I guess what we're calling northwest areas, and then a bit of the unoccupied part of the county, just a little bit, and some of the ways out there. So Carl Robinson being challenged on the Democrat side of the ballot by Sergio Coronado and Dorothy Sissy Bird. But then there is a competitive race there on the Republican side as well. The only one of the county commissioner seats that does have, anyone running on the Republican side of the ballot, including Blanca Trout, David Adams, Adam Fauch, and Victor Navarrete. So we're going to be having Mr. Navarrete on the program coming up next week to talk about his positions and his run for that position. So we've said it before, I think, but in case it's fallen on deaf ears out there, we do have an open invitation to those candidates on the ballot, particularly for those things like county commissioner, anyone running for the state reps positions and such, really those competitive locally based races that I would love to talk with them more about. We'll talk about the judgeships as well, but you're going to have to come prepared to talk about what the heck it does and how an individual person running for it, really what they really need to know, because those ones get a little bit more intractable. But again, I'm somewhat surprised because that is not, the Precinct 4 is not the only one that is on the ballot. There is also Precinct 2 for county commissioners, the one again currently held by David Stout, but there is no Republican candidate on the ballot there, which is, it happens just too often in our area. I would, again, imagine that it would have to be kind of one of the basic signs of life you would expect to see out of this, that there be competitive races across the board. It shows at least energy and enthusiasm that I think is taken for granted, that it just doesn't exist, because sure, conventional wisdom paints El Paso as Democrat, but my continuing contention, based on the results that we see at the polls, which prove me wrong, is that El Paso isn't a Democrat town. It's not even a Republican town. It's not even a green, libertarian, pink, whatever party town. It's a non-voting town, because if no vote was a choice on the ballot, it would win every single election, including presidential, because sure, we had that 56% voter turnout last year. It didn't go 56% for any one candidate. Just bad. Very bad indeed. So we got to get that fixed here. So the fact that we have some seats that are going unopposed, I mean, half of the judgeships, more than half, some justices of the peace, at least one competitive one, but most of the other ones, I mean, sure, that has a certain other level of requirements in terms of background and training, I will not be running for a judgeship anytime soon for probate court, criminal court, whatever have you. But still, I would love it to see a little bit more going on there. Now, it's important to also note that these are not the only races that are going to be on the ballot coming up in November. These are just the partisan ones, and we've got nonpartisan ones that are going to be on that November ballot. Probably going to be a decently crowded one. So we'll be delving into that for the primaries coming up, talking at first with, again, Victor Navarrete, Republican candidate for the precinct number 4 for County Commissioner's Court, the one, again, currently held by Carl Robinson. But then we will also be talking with one of the Democratic candidates, actually the one that is hoping to challenge or is challenging and hoping to defeat in the primary, current sitting Congresswoman Veronica Escobar. We're going to be talking with DMB, Delarice Montañez Berrios, on Wednesday of next week. So kicking off our election coverage with those sets of interviews to go into why they're running and what they hope to bring to it. Requests for a couple of these or reached out by the campaigns, why we're starting with them, because, hey, if you're interested in being interviewed, we're interested in talking with you. So we got a few more that we'll be going to, but those are the ones to start with, or again, have been suggested by you all out there in the audience. So we'll get further into it and really get into it with these candidates on what they are running for and about, because don't forget policy. Policy, what are you actually going to do? I find to be the most important thing, and if anyone wants to argue with me about this, we've had a little bit of discussion about how you choose the candidate you're going to vote for. And frankly, if you're voting at this point, I don't care if you're flipping a coin. Okay, I care a little bit if you're flipping a coin, but I don't care whatever process you decide about who you're going to choose. As long as you're going to vote, I'm going to have not as much of an issue here. Leroy Chuck saying he likes voting based off how much free money the political party will give me. So, okay, sure, let's talk about that, because there actually is, gosh, remember back from my political science college days, that have some people saying that the American government shall remain for the people up until they realize they can bribe the American people with their own money. So that is absolutely a possibility of how people think about it. So probably a decent portion of the people who go out and vote right now might think that way. So just do yourself and the rest of us a favor and make sure you go out and vote. Calvin Williams also joining us over here, asking to write in his name for any uncontested seat. Now, that has been a question that came up about the only declared candidate against the other seat that is, again, just baffling to me, that does not currently have a challenger for it, either within the primary or even on the other side of the ballot, and that being for County Judge Ricardo Samaniego. Given just how much people just on this program were calling up to talk about it, or happy or unhappy, you can decide the balance of what that was for yourself. The fact that he doesn't have an opponent on these ballots and no one on the Republican side of things is just baffling to me. But of course, we do have a candidate who has declared an independent run against him that will be taking place. The action on that will have to happen after this primary. So planning on doing more of that conversation then, because the primary voting won't really affect that candidate's ability to run, weirdly enough. Texas has some weird political laws when it comes down to it that I find just baffling sometimes, including some of the commentary going on here. Leroy Chuck asking Calvin Williams, what will you give me for free handouts here? Well, as long as we're having some kind of discourse, I find it better than none. Okay, anyone out there that can give me a better sense, because I've done a whole lot of thinking about why El Paso has such bad voter turnout rates, and the answer I keep circling around here is that there's a whole lot of people that just don't understand the impact that elected positions can have on it. And not even necessarily they don't consider that all they set taxes, but there's just some kind of serious break in the chain of logic between voting and then what affects your pocketbook. That's one of the reasons back, even in my days as a reporter and being more in TV news, I was always fascinated and wanting to break down as much as possible what the sum total of impact on your bottom line would be from all these different positions. Sure, tax rates in the city and in the county they're highlighted when they come up and when new tax rates are set, but even some of the biggest taxing entities have some of the lowest voter turnout. So clearly there is something that is just not getting through to the average voter that I still just don't get. And all I can think of is that they haven't even been told to do so. That has not been explained to them what the connection is between going out and voting choosing candidates for office, the policies they set, and then what you're going to see in the tax bill at the end of the year. It has often been brought up that we have some of the highest tax percentage-wise or per capita in the state of Texas, or some of the highest debt loads as well. So why that doesn't end up getting down to it, there was some of the national reporting that happened leading up to the 2020 election, and one of the more contentious in living memory, and some of the national reporting was kind of embarrassing, not because it was talking about or honing in on the issues that often get talked about when outsiders come and talk about this region and our community, but just interviews being done with individuals to asking them, okay, what are your issues when it comes up to vote? And there was a hand to God, at least one person who said, what election? That then ended up being reported in, can't remember exactly what outlet, but there were so many swirling around town at that time, a surprising amount of focus on the borderland, but border issues, I've said it for a long time, that everything that happens around the world these days, it's hard to pick a topic that doesn't end up having an impact or an issue that goes right through our backyard. So I guess that's why they were here, amongst other things. But at least one person who basically said, for lack of a direct quote, what election? For 2020. For that freaking election, oh, God bless. It's a mess. We got some more comments coming in here. But again, open invitation to make that call as well. If you're wanting to chime in on air, just ask you keep it clean, but we'll take on any subject. The number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Got an accident reported at Montana at Yarborough. Edgemere could be an alternate for you. I-10 westbound at Vinton. That's exit number 2 off the 10 going northbound. Accident reported there, slowing traffic. Gateway Boulevard southbound, the 54 southbound south of the I-10 at the 110. An injury accident there. And South Mesa Hills north of Sunland Park at Bluff Ridge Drive. Police on the scene of an accident there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Texas Department of Transportation. As you drive through Texas, keep in mind that don't mess with Texas actually means don't litter. Keep Texas roads clean and beautiful by holding on to your litter until you can get to a trash can. Always keep a litter-free state of mind and don't mess with Texas. A message brought to you by TxDOT.
Now may be the perfect time to buy a home financed by Loan Depot. Loan Depot has over 300 loan products to help you make home ownership a reality. Interest rates are near historic lows. Rates will not stay low forever. So call 866-888-LOAN so one of our thousands of loan officers can help you find the right loan. Call 866-888-LOAN or visit loandepot.com. Loan Depot. Rates are subject to change. Equal housing opportunity lender. NMLS number 174457. Licensed in all 50 states.
Have you wanted to speak a new language but thought it'd be too difficult or take too much time? Then try Babbel. In just 15 minutes a day, Babbel teaches you conversations that you will actually use. With 14 languages and lesson topics like travel, business, relationships, and more, you'll learn what matters most to you. Babbel. Language for life. Learn a new language with ease. Go to Babbel.com to try for free. That's BABBEL.com.
Washington politicians are getting richer and richer. A report says Nancy Pelosi could be worth as much as $250 million. And Dr. Fauci just revealed he's worth over $10 million. Not bad for working in public service. If you're tired of the hypocrisy, you need to watch Stinchfield. He's on Newsmax every weekday at 8 p.m. Eastern, and everyone is tuning in. Grant Stinchfield exposes the Washington insiders in his series Hypocrites in America. He even names the hypocrites and reveals their secret agendas. You'll also see Michael Savage and Dick Morris giving their take on Stinchfield. So get Newsmax. It's on every major cable system. If your cable operator doesn't carry Newsmax, tell them you want it. Or watch Newsmax free on your smart TV, like Samsung, Vizio, or LG. And streaming on Pluto, Zumo, Roku, and more. Millions are turning off their old media for Newsmax, a trusted source. Watch Stinchfield tonight and find out why.
Are you ready for an unparalleled work experience where you see your impact every day? GDIT is hiring IT help desk professionals to solve real-world technical challenges and help protect our nation's security. Apply now at gdit.com/careers.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so. And a lot of ways you can participate in the show, particularly on this end of the week Friday thing here. We are taking those comments and calls throughout the hour. Skeptic Squad up and at 'em already. Matt Olson, Calvin Williams, Leroy Chuck, Edgar Ortiz chiming in a little bit earlier here. Calvin Williams announcing his intention to run for any seat that is uncontested with his campaign slogan as experience got you here, now vote for common sense. And Matt Olson chiming in, just a lot of people at common sense. Leroy Chuck on that point about taxes that I was trying to make. It's not my taxes, it's the rich people's money, which I deserve. I wonder if that is actually part of the disconnect. I know you keep making them jokes, but I got to assume that there's some part of the disconnect probably between the average voter and how they don't see how, what they pay in rent. Because I think there's a decent amount of people who think that, well, I pay rent, I don't pay property taxes. You don't think that the property taxes pass through? Because if anything, there's never been a time that I can remember when there has not, if prices go up, costs go up, anything involved in the production or creation of a particular thing ends up going up. More comments, you got to check them out for yourself. But anytime that there are strains or increases in costs of what's leading up to the final product, I cannot think of a time it does not end up getting passed on to the end user or consumer, depending on the circumstance. And that includes with your rent. If taxes go up, if the property taxes end up seeing a shift, sure, the homeowners are going to bear that brunt directly, but you don't think that's going to get factored into what your rent is looking like? I mean, the whole housing market has been a little bit nuts lately. And with that impending expected hike of interest rates coming as soon as March, depending on what the heck the Fed actually ends up doing, it could even take off even further. There have been some articles out there, including from Bloomberg, reporting that there is now, estimates vary, but about 1 in 10 properties, depending on where you live, but nationwide, may now be owned by large concerns, whether it be banks, whether it be conglomerates, whether it be, property holding companies or just, rental situations or companies. That is how much money has been pumped into that. So the housing market has already been going weird as you like for a minute now, but now we're really starting to see that as these prices continue, and all of that means that, okay, it might be a higher percentage of rentals going forward, that those prices that come down from taxes absolutely getting passed down to what you're seeing within your rental bill, particularly if you're redoing it. Oh gosh, if anyone has any better perspective on this, because I feel like I'm just shouting at people who aren't paying attention, if you have conversations, because anyone I talk with in person, I'm going to demand something out of them. Be like, okay, what do you at least pay attention to, if not your actual leanings? So if anyone has any conversation with people who aren't voting, would love to know what answers you get from them if you've ever even asked. Anyway, we do have those calls. You can make 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. Do have a call here on there right now. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
This is Raul.
Hey there, Raul. What's on your mind?
Well, these kinks in the supply chain are really, really unfortunate, as is a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Once in a lifetime pandemic. Most of these problems with the supply chain, with the kinks, have to do with people getting the virus, staying home, dying, some of them, all kinds of disruptions that have happened to our global economy because of this pandemic that we're living through, right?
Sure, but then the question we had kind of brought up a little bit earlier this week on that point is about the current administration. You are definitely on record as being very opposed to the previous one. That's no secret to anyone. But you also said, particularly this week, that you cannot blame everything that happens on the current administration, which is an interesting standpoint given what you usually end up bringing up here. So even conceptually, going to put this question to you, even conceptually, is there something that this current administration can or more likely should be doing to address this? Because again, if it's kind of this hands up, well, that's the way it is kind of situation, that's not exactly good or a good policy to have adapted. Would you agree?
I give President Biden about a B plus grade. When you take into account the disaster that he inherited from Donald Trump, like the disaster that Obama inherited from Republican George Bush, which in the case of George Bush, of course, was an unnecessary war and a crashed economy. And in this case, with Trump, a failed response to the pandemic. Joe Biden is trying to do everything he can, the best he can to handle this thing that we've never had to deal with, where the science is still evolving. But I think their hearts are in the right place. It's not like Donald Trump bragging about the stock market the whole time that he was president, and then going and playing golf during the pandemic. So, I happen to, again, think the most important thing that's happening is what happened with that insurrection and the hearings that are going to come out about it. This attack on our country's Constitution and Congress on the part of Donald Trump. More and more bad news comes out from him every day. All these people have flipped on him. Hundreds of his people who worked in his administration have flipped on him. But the Republicans want to have culture wars. We want to talk about critical race theory. We're going to talk about how Biden has botched the pandemic response when we got so many millions of Americans who don't want to get vaccinated. We want to talk about how the vaccine is a hoax. And that Dr. Fauci, he's some kind of Nazi. He's the problem. All these distractions from the real problem at hand, which was that insurrection at the Capitol on January 6th.
I again understand that is a focal point for your mentality of it here, but it seems like there's more than a little bit of hand waving than all the other issues that, they all come out to. It almost sounds like you're saying that it comes out of January 6th, which, again, fully in favor of that being fully investigated, though I'm not sure that the current way it's set up is going to produce anything substantive more than it is going to be political on its own. But we're going to have to take on more of this after the break here because we're already due for it at the top of the hour here, but I don't want to let this go. Let's talk about that and then also another enduring question about how you can even be involved in politics these days. We'll have to hit that after this break here with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. If you want to call in during the show, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Got an accident reported at Montana at Yarborough. Edgemere could be an alternate for you. I-10 westbound at Vinton. That's exit number 2 off the 10 going northbound. Accident reported there, slowing traffic. Gateway Boulevard southbound, the 54 southbound south of the I-10 at the 110. An injury accident there. And South Mesa Hills north of Sunland Park at Bluff Ridge Drive. Police on the scene of an accident there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Under Governor Greg Abbott, the Texas economy is full speed ahead. Ranked the #1 state for business every year he's been governor. #1 in exporting products all over the world. #1 in businesses moving to the state. And well over 1 million new jobs since the pandemic. Under Governor Abbott's leadership, the Texas economy is the envy of the nation. But under Biden and Beto, Texas would come to a screeching halt. Open borders causing chaos and endangering our safety. Higher taxes hurting families and businesses. The Green New Deal crushing our economy. On March 1st, vote to keep Texas on the right track. Governor Greg Abbott, securing the future of Texas.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Rich is just a really good guy. The term good egg isn't enough to describe him. He's also certified organic and free range. Rich puts the cap back on everything. The toothpaste, the olive oil, the shampoo, everything. He lets his 10-year-old nephew beat him at virtual tennis, even though he can straight up slay his 10-year-old nephew in virtual tennis. When the toilet paper is running low, Rich replaces the roll on the actual holder, not just on the back of the toilet. Rich is texting and driving. Rich, no. What are you doing, Rich? I was just telling everyone how great you are. Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
The most current and comprehensive. Just minutes away at the top and bottom of the hour. And always online. News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. A winter storm is racking up flight cancellations across the U.S. FlightAware reports more than 3,400 flights have been canceled within, into, or out of the U.S., along with over 1,800 delays as well. Boston Logan International Airport has seen more than half of its originating flights canceled today. Former Vice President Mike Pence rebuked his former boss Friday during a speech at the Federalist Society Conference at Disney's Yacht Club Resort.
And I heard this week that President Trump said I had the right to overturn the election. But President Trump is wrong. I had no right to overturn the election. The presidency belongs to the American people.
Pence went on to say Vice President Kamala Harris will also have no right to overturn the election when the Republicans win in 2024. Delta Airlines is asking for the federal government to help with unruly passengers. CEO Ed Bastian sent a letter to the U.S. Department of Justice asking to put unruly passengers on the national no-fly list. He says the move would show there's zero tolerance for any behavior that interferes with flight safety. Bastian noted there's been a 100% increase of unruly passengers since 2019. More vaccinated adults are being hospitalized during the Omicron surge. Lisa Taylor has more.
However, they are also less likely to have severe illness or die. That's according to a new CDC analysis of a hospital in Los Angeles that found there were more hospitalizations during Omicron compared to the Delta variant, but vaccinated adults had a lower likelihood of being admitted into the ICU. The CDC emphasized that getting vaccinated and particularly having a booster shot is critical in lowering the healthcare burden of the Omicron variant.
At the closing bell, the Dow Jones lost 21 points to 35,089. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Changes could be coming soon to coronavirus-related rules in New York State. Scott Pringle has more.
Governor Kathy Hochul thinks Valentine's Day and Super Bowl Sunday will be the last of the coronavirus winter surge, and she's hinting that COVID restrictions may soon be loosened or lifted.
Be able to talk about this post-surge phase, gather the data, talk to my health commissioner experts, and then make some decisions.
The latest daily figures show the percentage of people testing positive statewide sits at a little over 4%, way down from the 23% positivity rate about a month ago.
Transgender athletes will no longer be allowed to participate in girls' and women's sports in South Dakota. Republican Governor Kristi Noem signed a bill yesterday that has been referred to as the Fairness in Sports measure. It mandates that sports participation in the state be separated by sex assigned at birth. Noem says the new law will ensure that girls' sports remain a level playing field. The American Dream Mall in New Jersey is having financial problems. Lisa G. reports.
The mall had to enter its reserve fund to make a $9.3 million bond payment. It's had many financial problems, including construction delays, stalled store openings, along with obstacles due to the pandemic, with many people shopping online. Reports say the mall has less than $1,000 in its reserve fund, with their next payment due in August.
The Downtown San Diego Partnership wants to put up a safe village to help get people off the streets. The San Diego Union Tribune reports the plan is an alternative to shelters, similar to concepts in Los Angeles, Fresno, and San Francisco. The plan would include long-term campgrounds or parking lots with tents or some type of prefab housing. This comes after the partnership released the homeless count for January, reporting more than 1,400 people sleeping on the streets of downtown San Diego. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Work. That's work. Enter it now.
This report is sponsored by Brakemasters.
Have you ever thought that the one thing connecting you between work and family is your car? Brakemasters always thinks this way. It's what we like to call being in Brakemaster shape. Download coupons at Brakemasters.com. Then head home safely again.
Brakemasters. We give you an honest break.
Being a real estate agent isn't about listing houses. It's about connecting to people.
I need to find new buyers every day. So I promote my listings using radio commercials from iHeartAdBuilder.com. Now every time I have an open house, it's a full house.
A custom radio ad from iHeart Ad Builder is the fast, affordable way to drive customers to your business. Put the power of radio to work for you. Get started now at iHeartAdBuilder.com.
What is iHeartRadio? All your favorite music.
This is Steven Tyler.
And Joe Perry from Aerosmith.
James from Metallica here. It's iHeartRadio. All your favorite stations, where you live or where you used to live. And of course, virtually every podcast on the planet at your fingertips. And it's all free. If you don't already have it, download the free iHeart app today. iHeart. Discover music, radio, and podcasts you'll love.
iHeartRadio.
There are things that go together that make mornings better. Coffee and cream, bacon and eggs, pancakes and syrup.
Let's take a look at traffic and weather together.
Traffic and weather. Yeah. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio. Updates all day long.
General things like that help me get through my day.
Before you head out, get together with our traffic and weather. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. All of those, either Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. You can find us there and chime in, as we got the Skeptic Squad up and at 'em already, and a lot of conversation going on that previous call. But if you're wanting to call in during the show, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Oh, so much to talk about this week, but we'll take on any subject here today. I mean, we got the weather that happened, kind of a bit of a fizzle in our area, even if other areas are suffering, or myself specifically earlier today, as I'd have to try to clamp down a pipe that burst and was gushing all over the side of our building. Fun stuff. Hope you didn't have a similar kind of thing. And looking at fair skies coming in, but the implications that come out of it, I know I've talked about it a bit recently, but there actually is that Keep the Lights On tour that kicked off today, with the Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke campaign now making its multi-city, 12-day, 2,100-mile, 20-city tour. Yeah, including going to Midland, Odessa, Abilene, Wichita Falls, Denton, Tyler, Waco, Austin, and more. Whether or not it's actually going to be persuasive to anyone that isn't already in agreement with that campaign, frankly, is maybe not even the point of it, now that I think about it. But I got to imagine that maybe even some of those people on the fence are probably thinking, yeah, maybe so what? Depending on their specific situation. Again, I'd probably be a little bit more unhappy about the pipe bursting, but it's then hard to then transfer that to, well, what happened with the ERCOT response, particularly since that doesn't have anything to do with it locally. But get to more of those calls in the line. The number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Do have Andrew on the west side on the line here with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much. Just a couple of things I wanted to bring up. One thing that the Raul character never brings up about the supply chain issue is this administration closed down the Keystone Pipeline. He's also contemplated closing down other pipelines, and now he has raised levies and taxes and increased the cost to drill and explore on federal lands. One other thing that's been going on is OPEC is now raising the price on the barrel of oil, if people have not noticed that in the news.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a whole lot of that kind of stuff going on. Absolutely. One of the more interesting things about okay, so for this administration, there's been more than a couple of circumstances where it's been well, we don't like this policy, but we're just having our arm twisted and we have to kind of thing going on. And that is continued even into when it comes to the whole oil and gas production situation, because amongst other things, oil and gas exploration within the Gulf of Mexico has been, well, essentially mandated to continue because that had been something being said by the Biden administration, a campaign promise, if not mistaken, that, yeah, we're going to clamp down on that. And now courts have said, well, you can't do it the way you did. And now, again, just very similar kind of situation with them saying, well, there's nothing we can do. We have to do it. So I guess we got to do it. But I got to imagine in the background, they're probably being like, whew, I guess that has kind of removed it from our responsibility now.
Okay. That's true. That's true. Two other points I wanted to make. The president said we need to put an end to gun violence. Well, my friends, you're not going to put an end to gun violence unless you punish criminals and enforce the laws that are on the books. And number three, I would hope that the candidates running for county commissioner, whichever precinct they're running for, address the issue that county retirees no longer have a cost of living adjustment to their pensions. That was cut out by Commissioner's Court in the final years of Veronica Escobar when she was county judge.
All right, I'm writing that down right now. So, a question for county commissioners: what are they going to do about the no cost of living adjustment for county retirees? I mean, we're going to talk about their policies, why they're running all of that good and important stuff. But I will be sure to interject that one as well because, I mean, if you all got questions that you wanted to ask us when we announce these candidates up, probably still not going to be set up to be taking live questions, but we also will take them through the social media. But if you all got pressing concerns for any of these people we're going to be talking with, and this is just the start of it. We're going to go through as many as we can ahead of Election Day, but we'll definitely bring it up as is relevant and, reliable for asking different candidates.
Thank you. And one other thing, COVID situation, the system being overloaded, and people are worried about non-vaccinated individuals and more COVID cases. Well, allowing more people into the country, unfettered immigration, does not help. Just to give you some information, and you can look at this off the internet, those who want to investigate. We are close to 900,000 COVID-19 deaths so far.
And yeah, I mean, I don't find it persuasive to think that this is a root cause of it, but particularly for our community, it's got to be more than a little bit of a contributor to it. So all of it is connected. All of this stuff needs to be focused on, and a deficiency in any area when it comes to the top level response or even local response ends up affecting other things, because you don't think that the continuing amount of that and the transmission going on is then going to affect things like the supply chain. People will be able to go into those workforces. I mean, it's the cascading effects that come from all of these aspects bear discussion and talking about, and what we can expect to see from it is more than a little bit of a concern for me. So I appreciate the point in the call there.
Right. Well, to quote an old saying, if you're stuck in a hole, you quit digging.
Or to quote the Simpsons line, no, dig up.
Yeah. All right. Take care.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Oh, yeah. I mean, the issues we got going on, there are some new ones, like anything involving the internet, probably best put as newish, but they often come down to basic social interaction questions that have existed for millennia at this point. Just a new way of doing it. So, let's get into more of that here. Squeeze in one more call right now. Again, are taking those calls throughout the rest of the show here. So 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM, the number to call here. Leroy Chuck saying money talks, which is why nothing will change in El Paso. I think that we need to be doing more regular talking besides the money, but that's my contention here. So at least one more call here. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
Ben on the east side.
Hey there, Ben. What's on your mind?
Well, I just wanted to find out, what country is the most vaccinated country in the world right now? Probably one of the most.
I mean, the one that still comes top of my mind is most likely Israel, but that might not be the totally current one.
You're right, Israel. And what kind of problem are they having with Omicron in Israel right now?
Well, the same kind of problems we're seeing here, to my understanding. Israel had problems even before this. They got way the hell out in front of it and were vaccinating just about everyone, and then they started seeing the drop-off that comes in the efficacy that comes along with it. So they've been having problems before this, but yeah, the effectiveness of the early versions of the vaccine is questionable for this current variant.
Okay. They are currently experiencing more deaths and more ICU admissions per capita. Okay. And it seems like, we're talking about, and they're dealing with Omicron, and this is more than pre-vax. In other words, before they started getting vaccinated and everything, they're having more deaths and more ICU admissions per capita. What does that say to you?
It says to me we probably need to be looking about how we administer this, how we even go about it, because we've talked about this more than a little bit ourselves here, just you and me, about that this vax only focus has some issues with no other focus. It falls a bit short in the long. It's very short, maybe medium term thinking is the issue.
Andrew, wouldn't you say? You have to come out and say it. There's no place to run, no place to hide. This is a absolute fact. The reason why Israel is experiencing this is because the vaccines do not work. Okay, and they're going to cause problems later on. South Africa is 27% vaccinated and have a lower hospitalization and ICU admission per capita. So, you can't, there is a correlation between the two. And especially because most of the people in Israel are very, very healthy. Okay. They take care of themselves. They, exercise, they do all the things that you're supposed to do. But in South Africa, most of them are pretty sick, from other things. Okay. And everything. They don't have the proper amount of food going to them, everything else. So we're talking about, this is stark reality. Vaccination, this is not working. So one of the things that does work, and again, they came out with another study, vitamin D. Simple vitamin D. If your vitamin D level is above 50, chances of getting COVID or getting a low or a bad case of COVID is 14 times lower. Okay, and there's plenty of countries in other parts of the world that are actually, when they have a patient that comes in and into an ICU, they give them calcium which is the natural form or the active form of vitamin D, and they don't end up on respirators. They go home. So just allowing people to have, vitamin D doesn't have any risk at all with it. We know that the vaccines have whole sorts of risks.
Yes and no. I'm not following you down the line of reasoning that there is no point to a vaccine and that vaccines don't work. That has just not even been my personal experience, people in my own life. Again, the question about then how they should be implemented, I think, is the more critical one here. Because if there's only reliance on that, you're seeing the deficiencies in everything else you're talking about. Also, there are some factors. There's been instances of people overdosing, well, not overdosing, but taking way too much of vitamins and other supplements and ending up with things like kidney stones, gallstones. Like, there are factors that come with it. Too much of anything is still a bad thing. But I think really what we're coming around here to is that there is too much of a focus on one aspect and not enough of a focus on the overall health issues that come along with this. That's what I will agree with you on. We are overdue for that next break right now. So coming out of the next break, we will get to more of the calls in the line here. Again, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Police are working an accident, I-10 frontage road northbound at Vinton. Slowing traffic a little bit on the I-10 north of town. Gateway Boulevard northbound at Sean Haggerty. A crash there is slowing traffic on the 54 Gateway and the exit ramps. I-10 westbound between Wrestler and Thorne. It's stop-and-go traffic with 5-minute delays. And police still on the scene of an accident South Mesa Hills, north of Sunland Park at Bluff Ridge Drive. El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Brake Masters.
Have you ever thought that the one thing connecting you between work and family is your car? Brake Masters always thinks this way. It's what we like to call being in Brake Master shape. Download coupons at BrakeMasters.com. Then head home safely again.
Brake Masters. We give you an honest break.
Let's face it, credit cards are pretty much a necessity.
New tires for the car? Here's my card.
I order takeout, use my card. And most of us just accept the high interest rates credit cards charge as a necessary evil.
What are you going to do?
Get a low fixed-rate credit card consolidation loan from Lightstream from $5,000 to $100,000 and pay off those credit card balances. Apply online, and you could get your money as soon as the day you apply. The average credit card company charges over 19% APR, but with Lightstream, you can get a fixed rate as low as 4.98% APR with autopay and excellent credit.
Now I can pay off my high-interest credit cards and save money with a much lower rate.
Apply today at lightstream.com/radio and get an additional interest rate discount. That's lightstream.com/radio. Lightstream.com/radio.
Subject to credit approval. Rates range from 4.98% APR to 19.99% APR and include a 0.5% auto pay discount. Lowest rate requires excellent credit. Terms and conditions apply and offers are subject to change without notice. Visit lightstream.com/radio for more information.
iHeartRadio Earth is here with little tips for a healthier planet. It sure feels good to step into a warm car after letting it heat up for a few minutes. However, this practice wastes gas, increases emissions, and pollutes the air. Limit idling your car to no more than 3 minutes to save money at the gas station and improve air quality. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living, or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/earth.
Take a trip back to Apartment 4D with the crew from the sitcom New Girl and rewatch the series with real-life friends Zooey Deschanel, Hannah Simone, and Lamorne Morris.
We could do a whole episode dedicated to Jake Johnson and his lack of awareness around certain technological things, especially with his phone.
Listen to Welcome to Our Show on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts. Brought to you by DuckDuckGo. Protect your privacy online for free with DuckDuckGo.
Weather and traffic info. You need it? We have it. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed. News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in. However you may be doing so, a lot of ways to participate in the show, particularly today. If you have those phone lines open, as we have throughout the entire program, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We also got some of those pound 250 calls. Again, if you want to leave it before next show, we will certainly get to it. A lot of comments going on as well. Louise Team Pam commenting over on our the YouTube page. The YouTube Facebook is a Talk El Paso, facebook.com/Talk El Paso. The YouTube is the Talk El Paso channel. Louise Team Pam saying fire whoopee. A little bit outside of our jurisdiction, but well, there's certainly some foot and mouth disease, it seems like, was going on there. And we'll see what happens to it. One of the better conversations I was having with someone about that is that the initial start of the whole view was kind of as a lighter version of the McLaughlin report, and then has just gotten off the rails from there. I have not been a regular watcher or listener of that for a while now, so yeah. Leroy Tug with a larger concern here about leaders may never release the control they got from COVID restrictions. People freely gave up their rights. I have said, and I still stand behind the idea that, yes, there were certain emergency procedures that had to happen, but that my concern would come at the point of if it, drags on for a while and we start seeing, the pandemic become endemic as opposed to pandemic, as we've been talking about, and they still have these things in place. That's when I will start wondering, okay, why are we doing this, and why are you doing it that way? Or more wondering, what am I going to do about it, to be more specific, and hopefully other elected. So we got those comments going on if you want to check out for yourself. But we also got those calls. Again, the number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Do have Joe on the east side with us right now here. Joe, thanks for joining us.
Hi there. Again, Talk El Paso, an excellent show for El Paso, the area, with Andrew J. Polk, Raul, and Andrew. It is easy to realize the dread people have when they are assailed by irrational thoughts and feelings of others. One may fear these, resent them, and fight them. These changes of status quo arise from a hostility or a threat against the person. These negative thoughts of suspicion, discontent, distrust, and fear emerge against all whose ways and ideas are alien and unfamiliar. Ideas that are not understood or different. These feelings, national, racial, political, religious, all bias the mind and prejudice the mind from birth. We all grow up surrounded by an atmosphere crowded by certain ideas and feelings. Hence, the same idea will look quite different to Democrats, Republicans, Catholics, Hispanics, Raul, and Andrew. These opinions, customs, beliefs are intensified and become odious to the other. Walls will be built, divisions will become the norm, war follows. There is no hope. Thank you very much.
Sure.
My opinion.
Sure thing, and I appreciate your thought and opinion there, but I gotta say, if your point there is that people being divided is only going to increase and result in, as I believe you said there, war, I gotta say I disagree with you. Because sure, there are differences of opinion. There has been differences of opinion ever since probably man had ability to communicate and present those ideas. And at the very least, that is what we're here to do, because in the modern era, I do believe it has accelerated to a certain extent, because the whole marketplace of ideas, the whole ability to have a frank discussion has been constrained a bit by the advent of social media, the echo chambers that come along with it. It hasn't, I don't think, on balance, done a whole lot of good things for our country or our society or for humanity in general. I'm willing to be proven wrong on that, but from everything I've seen, it hasn't necessarily done a whole lot of good. But if there's anything that I would hope come out of this, is the ability to understand that at the very least there are other viewpoints, even within a professed side of belief or value system. There can be differences of opinion, and that doesn't necessarily mean there's wrong, but it's certainly up for debate. And that ability to debate topics without coming to blows or to wars, I believe you put it, or even just entertain an idea without accepting it, seem to be very unfortunately increasingly lost arts. And that is literally the death of a society or a country or a nation or a civilization if there cannot be a reasonable discussion about what is important, what are the priorities, what should be done about it, what are the tactics that should be employed in order to achieve that goal. If there cannot be discussion about it, we are in further trouble than we might even think we are. But my contention is that we are not that far gone, that we are not past the point of return.
Andrew, I see the difference between Raul and Andrew. Raul calls in, Andrew always follows. Both of them are good people, but they do not agree with each other. And I see that Raul is not necessarily wrong. He's different. And we need to accept him without Andrew trying to criticize or badmouth him for everything he says. That's my point that I see, because we each have our differences of opinion.
Sure. No, absolutely. And I'll agree with you on the idea of differences of opinion. But then to say that there's someone responding to it, heck, there's been we've taken some measures and had to in the past for civility of discussion, shall we say, mostly along the lines of not allowing people to just spam curse words within our social media, because literally that's what the rest of the internet unfortunately devolves into. But more specifically, freedom of speech is one that I, given the position that we do, the way we go about things, clearly am a little bit invested in and very much appreciate and hold sacrosanct. But freedom of expression, freedom of speech, etc., does not mean a freedom from any criticism that comes along with it. So anyone wants to put their 2 cents out there, they are more than welcome to, and we're going to talk about it. So I think that there is this misconception that someone disagreeing with you is a form of violence. Now, there are some out there that held much stronger views on the response or what should be done in response to such opinions, and I find my own disagreements with them. But simply the ability to then respond to someone, there's the idea of tolerance without acceptance. And that is, I mean, to tolerate an idea, to tolerate the ability of someone to express themselves and to bring it forth and to state their idea, identity, etc., without necessarily having to say, and therefore I have to accept you and support you. That's kind of a misnomer in my mind, that you can say that, yes, you have the ability to say your point, and I do not then have to accept it as my own. That is foundational. Absolutely. So I take your point fairly. I believe as it is intended that, got some people who disagree with each other, but that's always going to happen. And we'll be here to have that discussion as we do. So I thank you for the point in the call. We got to take that next break right now. But coming out of the break, we got more calls in the line, and we'll get to those. That number to call again, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Estefania Safer with your KFOX 14 News update. A federal jury in Texas has convicted 2 members of the Barrio Azteca gang on all counts related to the murders of a U.S. consulate employee, her husband, and the husband of another consulate employee. Jose Guadalupe Diaz and Martin Perez Marrufo were found guilty at the conclusion of a 13-day jury trial. The victims were targeted by the hit teams after departing from a child's birthday party in Juarez because they were mistaken for rival gang members. Sentencing is scheduled for May 9th. A heater unit sparked a fire at a condo early Friday morning in East El Paso. The small fire was reported at Casa del Sol on Loma Land Drive. Crews contained the fire and no injuries were reported. A fire official said it was determined the fire was caused by the heating unit. For all your local news and weather, make sure to visit kfoxtv.com.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A crash is slowing traffic northbound on the 54 Gateway at the Sean Haggerty exits. Got an injury accident in the Low Valley and North Loop Drive at the Loop 375 frontage road at America's Avenue. I-10 frontage road north of town, northbound at Vinton. They're cleaning up from an accident there. And we got an accident downtown, East San Antonio Avenue, east of Mesa Street at Kansas Street. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. We definitely started off our Friday morning with some very cold temperatures as we dipped well into the teens overnight. Well, we're going to do that yet again tonight. That's why our weather warning is still in effect until noon on Saturday. I think thereafter we'll start to make our way back gradually, but it's not going to be a quick recovery for us. We're still going to have those cool days and those cold nights.
This report is sponsored by General Dynamics Information Technology.
Are you ready for an unparalleled work experience where you see your impact every day? GDIT is hiring IT help desk professionals to solve real-world technical challenges and help protect our nation's security. Apply now at gdit.com/careers.
Hey guys, it's Edge Martinez. My family's gathering in the kitchen. It's our favorite place to catch up. Keep germs out. I use Lysol on countertops, tables, and the fridge handle. Nothing kills more viruses on more surfaces than Lysol disinfectant spray. Lysol, what it takes to protect. Use as directed.
This is Dan Patrick, proud to be your Lieutenant Governor. You know, the principles and values students learned in a one-room schoolhouse are still true today. That's why I passed a bill to ban teaching of critical race theory and stop boys from playing girls' school sports. The keys to a good education are great teachers and involved parents. I will always fight for great teachers and for parents' view to be heard and respected.
Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, a principled conservative fighting for Texas.
Running for lieutenant governor in 2014, I pledged to ban sanctuary cities and fund border security at historic levels. I kept my promise. This year, I approved funding to build the wall. Texas must secure the border because Biden won't, and we must stop those here illegally from voting.
Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick is endorsed by President Donald Trump.
I am giving him my complete and total endorsement.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Dan Patrick.
Have you ever thought that the one thing connecting you between work and family is your car? Brakemasters always thinks this way. It's what we like to call being in Brakemaster shape. Download coupons at Brakemasters.com. Then head home safely again.
Brakemasters. We give you an honest break.
This report is sponsored by Brakemasters.
City streets or small towns, everyone deserves a clean, green community. We are Keep America Beautiful, the nonprofit working to end littering, improve recycling, and beautify communities. Let's do beautiful things. Visit KAB.org.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Oh, a lot of stuff we're talking about here today, but a little bit of conversation about how we even have the conversation. If you want to chime in or bring up other issues here, this is Friday, and we do the whole bring on any topic and take it on throughout the hour or two, as we do, 4 to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday. The number to call there is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in our area. Glad the winter storm has more or less blown over. And if we did have a blown pipe here at our offices that I had to get myself a little damp with earlier. Not fun, but I'll survive, don't worry. But we got a lot more we'll get to, so if you're wanting to leave your own call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A lot of conversation about how we have conversation here on this, over on the social media, facebook.com/Talk El Paso. And a lot of conversation about me. And again, there's no one telling me how to talk about the vaccine or the health purposes of all of this. It's just what I see and look at and makes sense. And again, what has been very persuasive of thought process throughout all of this is do what's right for you and your family, because no one else is going to take care of you like you are. In any case, do have those calls on the line, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Do have Robert out in the Chaparral area right now. Robert, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you, Andrew. Thanks for taking my call. I appreciate it.
Sure thing. What's on your mind?
I wanted to offer, in light of the last caller you had, I did want to offer a little bit of hope for Raul and perhaps excitement for him and everything. And February 25th and 26th, we've got our pre-convention coming on in New Mexico and everything. We're looking for our lieutenant governors and our senators, legislatures, and everything to run and stuff. So I just wanted to encourage Raul, if he wanted to attend. Of course, it'd be interesting. I mean, he's got the biggest case of TDS, admittedly, that I've seen, but do want to encourage him, and we're into evangelism, and so turning. I know there's a lot of weeping or gnashing teeth and everything like that, but just wanted to encourage him. And also, there is a difference between. Opinions are great, and we have to share. It's great to share our opinion, have the freedom to do so, and just that. But just as we teach our elementary school kids, we teach them about the difference between facts and opinions. And instead of just blurting out opinions or things that we hate or disagree with, and a lot of what's blurted out across is not necessarily facts but they are opinions and thoughts. And so, just wanted to really give that encouragement to that Raul character to see about him making the. Of course, it's the Republican convention. But I thought he'd kind of be excited to participate in that.
I mean, okay. I do think he lives on the Texas side of things from what he's described it. But yet, I mean, anyone participating in the political process, I find better than not. I mean, we have a lot of very enthusiastic people with very specific opinions, and those that are, it has often been that those who have the strongest opinions may not be the most representative of the general polity of people being involved in politics. Because frankly, people who are satisfied, people who are happy with the way things are going, probably, or at the very least, usually in my experience, are the ones who are out there being the loudest, which is at least part of our problem, I do think.
Yep. Understandable.
Yeah. Well, appreciate the point and the call. Do appreciate you calling in today.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a good weekend.
Absolutely there. So, I mean, there's plenty of political process, and we may neglect sometimes our New Mexico side of things, even though the signal definitely goes up that far. But, yeah, the New Mexico pre-convention, as he mentioned there, happening coming up just a little bit. I mean, we got some of the vote on that side. There was a very crowded election that happened towards the end of last year, the off election year in New Mexico, in which a lot of seats, including, school board and things like that, were decided, even as we had on our side of the Texas side of things, complimentary school bond going through, the one from the Cañutillo Independent School District not ending up succeeding in the long run, but hey, so it goes. But that was at least a little bit responsive when it came to people actually going out and participating in the vote. I was mildly surprised at. Yeah, it was over the last one, even if we are still at that nice 4.5% level. That's, if there's any hope I have for this current election coming up, it's that we will at least surpass that. I mean, these primaries, I'll even give the primaries a mulligan if we don't hit it, as long as we hit it for the general election. The actual final selection of candidates for office that we're impending on, just all of it is, if we can at least muster up the courage, then maybe to have people go out and actually vote and participate in that process. Again, my entire thought process on how it is that people should consider voting is that is you punching your ticket to participation in public life. You want to do whatever you want as a private citizen, you go right ahead, you do your thing. But if you're then going to decide to come up, commentate, be involved, be active, be concerned, or even just discussing what is going on with these elected officials, with the policies they put forth, with the votes that happen, you better be voting yourself. Because how often, I mean, it's happened to me more than a couple of times, which is more than I'd like to admit, but, people saying, oh, no, this is all this guy's fault, or, oh, man, things are so screwed up because of these guys. And then I'm asked them, well, did you vote? Almost as like I almost asked it as a joke the first time, but ended up becoming no, I didn't vote. Why? And just I had to keep myself from cracking my skull open, smacking my head so hard. I mean, the whole, don't blame me, I didn't vote. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and blame you. Because if you're not even participating in the process, I mean, at the very least locally, very least within the city, county of El Paso, southern New Mexico in general, these places, a lot of decisions end up getting made by elected officials because they know that no one's paying attention. Yeah, this is a soapbox I've been on a bit before because just even we got the couple of people who come to the meetings, the ankle biters, the watchdogs, as they would be most accurately referred to, but treated like ankle biters by the elected official that they are then responding to, end up being taken as that's just those couple of people. No one else actually thinks that way. And for the most part, no one even actually cares, except for when it comes to things like tax rates, setting the budget. And even then, it's a very passing thing. The whole what have you done for me lately is way too pervasive of a mindset when it comes to our local electorate, because we got so many people that just they can't be bothered to care. Which, again, I don't have a great answer on why the heck that is, except that maybe it's not been explained to them. I used to be involved with an educational organization, but fell off that for a few years here due to, current modern life and such. But out in Arizona, based in Tucson or even Phoenix, the Arizona Youth Leadership Conference, which was based around providing basic information about the free enterprise system, patriotic education, the constitutional process, and all of that, and how people involved in it. And it was both encouraging to me to see the kids coming out of that, because this was for high schoolers, and saying that, wow, this stuff is important, but then also the number of them that said, I never learned this in school. And some of our founding fathers were more than a little bit accurate when they said that if there isn't education, even on just the functioning of our systems, that the country may not endure. So there's been a couple of conferences, conventions, local meetings that have happened along those lines. We've talked about a bit of them on air and some of our other programming of people saying, hey, let's get into this. What are the purposes? What are the mechanisms? Because to think that none of this stuff is just all intractable and completely unchangeable is just flat out wrong when it comes down to it. And it takes people getting involved to get it changed. I mean, heck, it's just outside of my awareness of politics, but the passing of the no amount of pay increase can be done by a current sitting Congress, can only be for the next one. My understanding about that whole process, that happened over just a couple of years and pretty much through the state level constitutional convention process and ended up becoming the latest amendment to the Constitution because of that, because of individual people getting involved. So I still hold out maybe against hope. Edgar Ortiz commenting that Doña Ana elections coming up, sheriff's choice, probably the most interesting one so far. So we'll probably get into that a little bit more. But we do have those phone lines open, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Another one coming in here. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
Hey, this is Marky from Central. Hey, there's a hell of a fire downtown right by the Wells Fargo building. Do you know what it is?
No, I haven't stepped outside to see that one. Wasn't burning once we went into the studio here, so.
The smoke is higher than the buildings. I just wondered if you got an update, but it's right next to the Wells Fargo building.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, firefighter. It's the Hotel Del Soto at the 300 block of Mills, according to our news partners over at KFOX here. So, yeah, from the pictures I'm seeing right now, thanks for bringing that up to the attention, is looking pretty bad. So stay away from that area. All right, well, yeah. So
no one's hurt. For the firefighter's safety.
Yeah, no injuries reported so far, but we'll have to keep an eye on that one here.
Is that an old hotel or a refurbished hotel?
I think it may have been one that was being worked on, or I might be thinking of the Gateway Hotel. I'll have to look more into that, but thanks for the notice there. All right, I do appreciate it.
I'm just wondering, but I could see it all the way from Wrestler coming from daycare, and as soon as we got downtown,
yeah, no,
you could just smell it permeating into the car.
Yeah, no windows in our studio here, so I appreciate the mention of it there. We'll have to keep our eye on that as well. So appreciate the point of the call.
Right on. All right, man. Have a good night.
All right, you too as well. So yeah, from the news partners at KFOX 14, hotel fire in downtown El Paso, 300 block of East Mills Avenue. So probably best to, if you're driving around right now, avoid the downtown area in general, because probably looking a little bit weird or bad at this point. The picture they got posted up over on the site right now, just so smoke billowing out of the top floor. So stay safe out there. Hopefully it wasn't related to anyone's trying to stay warm out there, as has previously happened with some older downtown El Paso buildings. Ugh. All right, we got to take that next break right now. Coming out of the break, we'll get to another call or two, and also the pound 250 call as well. Again, the number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Wrap up the week, talk about next week and what we got coming for you, so stay tuned. More Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Gateway Boulevard westbound at George Dieter. Injury accident there with EMS North Loop Drive in the low valley at 375 Loop Frontage Road. That's turned into an injury accident. EMS on the scene there. Downtown got an accident East San Antonio Avenue, east of Mesa at Kansas Street. And as a reminder, Trans Mountain still closed today, east and westbound, due to ice buildup on the roadway. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the new Our American Stories podcast.
Check out the new Our American Stories podcast, the show where the American people are the star, telling inspiring stories of history, sports, business, faith, and love, and your stories too. Subscribe on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
At Social Security, we are always thinking of ways to save you time and make things easier. That's why we created My Social Security. A My Social Security account allows you to access your earnings history and benefits information, request a replacement Social Security card, get a proof of income letter, estimate and apply for benefits, and more. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security. Securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense. Ben and Ashley I, Almost Famous, is the Bachelor Recap podcast you can't miss. Breaking down every episode from Bachelor Nation.
Clayton begs for her to stay. That's a nuts response.
Yeah.
So that absolutely
fantastic.
That absolutely tells me that this will be an awesome season. And I
agree. Listen to Ben and Ashley I, Almost Famous, on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts. Brought to you by DuckDuckGo. Protect your privacy online for free with DuckDuckGo.
Under Governor Greg Abbott, the Texas economy is full speed ahead. Ranked the #1 state for business every year he's been governor. #1 in exporting products all over the world. #1 in businesses moving to the state. And well over 1 million new jobs since the pandemic. Under Governor Abbott's leadership, the Texas economy is the envy of the nation. But under Biden and Beto, Texas would come to a screeching halt. Open borders causing chaos and endangering our safety. Higher taxes hurting families and businesses. The Green New Deal crushing our economy. On March 1st, vote to keep Texas on the right track. Governor Greg Abbott, securing the future of Texas.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working. Who, me? Text and whatever, just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of stuff we've been talking about here today. We'll take another call or two as we're coming up towards the end of our program here. 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM, just because that's the kind of thing we do on Friday. Got a pound 250 call as well we'll be getting to here in just a second. But coming up next week, we are going to be talking more about the elections we got coming up, starting with our candidate interviews. Starting on Tuesday, going to be talking with a Republican candidate for County Commissioner Precinct number 4. That's the one that's currently held by Democrat incumbent Carl Robinson. But we'll be talking with Victor Navarrete, hoping to become the Republican nominee to then challenge for that seat. And then also a little bit later in the week, talking with the challenger for Democrat incumbent Veronica Escobar, Delores Montañez Berrios. Going to be talking with her in the Texas 16th Congressional District Democrat race. So those are some of the things we got coming up for you next week, as well as a discussion about all the things that affect us here in the borderland from whatever level it may be coming at. Again, if you do have messages that you want to leave us before or after our show, one of the ways you can do so is by dialing that pound 250 line. Again, if you leave it for us in the middle of a program, we'll have to wait till the next one to get to it. But again, pound 250, dial that on your cell phone, just like it was a regular phone number, all 4 of those symbols, and then say the keyword Talk El Paso, and you can leave your own message for us here. Get to one of those in just a second, because I think having the conversation about what is going on is important and persuasive. So get to that here in just a second. Edgar Ortiz letting us know about that last call. Again, thanks to Marky for the update on a downtown situation, are looking at some another fire downtown. I just hope it's not related to that cold, because otherwise I will be, frankly, kind of sad about it. But the DeSoto Hotel downtown looking like it's decently engulfed. But Edgar Ortiz saying the only thing the DeSoto known for the last 10 years is alien smuggling. I don't think it had been refurbished, had been the question now that I looked at it. It's around the corner from, on the same block, more or less, as the Hotel Indigo, but don't think it has had any substantive work done with it within the last decade or so, shall we say. I think it had been essentially apartments, probably in a very similar kind of situation as the Gateway Hotel had been, ahead of there being, any work done with that. So I just hope it's not another one of those situations coming out of there being someone who maybe shouldn't have been present on that property doing some burning of things and that getting out of hand. there's been more than a couple of El Paso's historic downtown buildings that have been, well, they are no longer around because of that. And that is just, that's one hell of a shame what it comes down to. But we'll probably have more updates on that. As a reminder, the El Paso History Radio Show will also be going live tomorrow and having new topics, including on the history of UTEP. And if any information has come out by then, I'm sure we'll give you an update there. So that, again, airing 10 to noon here on News Radio 690 KTSM. So if you want to tune in for that and hear that conversation about the major subject and any updates, you're more than welcome to. But as I was mentioning, do have those pound 250 calls. So if you want to leave your own message that way, dial pound 250 on your cell phone, say the keyword Talk El Paso. When prompted, you can leave your own message like this.
This is Messiah Frankie. I want to share with all of you a huge wow moment that occurred today. That Pence guy used to be vice president to that guy with that funny looking yellow stuff on his head. He flat told that nut job that he disagrees with him. And he is a constitutionalist and follows the Constitution and not like that dotard doofus who wants to destroy the United States of America. Good for Pence. He finally got a spine. That or he got some paint remover to get that blasted yellow stripe off of his back. Boy, oh boy, was I excited about that. What do you all think about that, you conservatives out there? Huh? What do you think?
So if you want to leave your own message, particularly as we're at the end of the program here about that or any other subjects as we get ahead of our next show, again, the number to do so is by calling 915-544-5876-544-KTSM if you want to call us right now, though we're pretty much at the end of the show. We'll squeeze in another call if we can, but otherwise dialing pound 250, saying the keyword Talk El Paso when prompted, and leave your own recording. The national occurrence, I mean, that one, I think it sounds pretty safe to say that any announcement coming out of the Trump organization and the Trump campaign about a continuing campaign for 2024 kind of sounding like Pence probably won't be on that ticket, though if you also heard some of our news reports further saying that there might even be a run by Pence himself, it does come down to a larger question in my mind of can someone reasonably consider themselves a member of the conservative movement of the Republican Party more specifically without being a Trump supporter in this day and age? I think that is a relevant and interesting question, and one we'll just have to get into here more in future days and weeks, because that one affects us here, certainly. One other thing about the elections that I did want to mention, it does look like there are candidates going in for the county chair seat for the relevant parties here that are going unchallenged as well. So you get the candidates that you vote for, and we'll see those coming up here again for the next term of office. That'll do it here for us this week. Been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you sincerely to everyone who did tune in, call in, participate in the show. You all are really what helped make this program what it is as we discuss the issues that affect us here in the borderland. So I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles down the road. And have a great weekend, y'all. See y'all next week.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
The 375 transbound is still closed today, both east and westbounds due to ice buildup on the roadway. I-10 westbound between Wrestler and Thorne, 5-minute delay, stop-and-go traffic. Gateway Boulevard, westbound at Zaragoza, George Dieter, injury accident there. And in the Low Valley, we got emergency crew on the scene of an injury accident. North Loop Drive at Loop 375 Frontage Road, Cary Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Susan, it's so great to finally be able to get together again.
Oh, it sure is. And I really appreciate you picking up the bill.
I'm happy to. I've got the extra cash. Since we've all been driving so much more again, I've been using Get Upside, the free gas app that pays you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get paid cash when you buy gas with the Get Upside app?
Yes, up to 25 cents a gallon. Cash back every time I buy gas.
Does that actually add up to anything?
I'll make $200 to $300 this year.
Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the free Get Upside app now.
Download the free Get Upside app now in the App Store or Google Play to save up to 25 cents a gallon when you buy gas. Use promo code FUEL for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's up to 50 cents a gallon on your next fill up. You can cash out anytime right to your bank, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Get Upside app and use promo code FUEL for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code FUEL.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
Whiskey is for drinking and water is for fighting. In 1890's Ysleta, a pitched battle rages over the local water rights. Mayor Ben Alderetti and his men are cleaning out a water canal when IG Gall, who claims to be the legitimate mayor of Ysleta, arrives with his men and runs Alderetti and his workers off at gunpoint. Later, Alderetti returns to the canal with a warrant in hand, and the firefight begins. When the marshal finally arrives and restores order, one man is dead and several are wounded. The locals were heard to say of the gunfight that fortunately more horses died than people that day on the canal.
The El Paso History Show with Jackson Polk and Melissa Sargent is sponsored by Patrick Tuttle Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate, Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant in Cañutillo, Mission Del Rey Southwest, Keystone Heritage Park, and Monterey Asset Management. It's the El Paso History Show, Saturday morning at 10, streaming live on Facebook and on News Radio 690.
180 over 111.